Ahmir Thompson, Questlove,
Yes,
how are you doing?
I'm excited, man. I'm great. You know, it's well, we're right now it's morning time, and finished my stretch and yoga meditation. So
Mhm.
every day starts off awesome. It's when I
Um,
step into the outside world. That's when no,
uh, I
no, I'm good.
understand. I
Yeah.
understand. So I'm just really curious what the last year of your life has been like. This movie comes out in the summer of 2021,
Hmm.
and everybody who sees it loves it. And in some way more than loves it, they kind of there's a kind of gratitude in some corners of the world for your having done it.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm just wondering what having this in the world has meant for you for the last year.
It's really weird. All right, so I've been a creative. I mean, I've been a creative all my life, but I mean, like professionally, as you guys have known me,
Mm-hmm.
this is going on year 30. And so, you know, I mean, there have been peaks and valleys. So I'll say that a lot of times when I create something, um, I've just been used to kind of like a delayed gratification. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, there's still people now that are discovering my name on Hamilton. Wait, you were part of the Hamilton team? Like that sort of thing. Um, which I don't know. I think where my mind state was before March 2020, I just pretty much expected to rack up a whole bunch of points. And then maybe like when I pass away, then you guys would have discovered the scrolls like, oh my God, he did this and that, this, that, and this, and that, and this, that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
at the time when at the time when I'm doing this, I just thought that this was going to be one of the, yet another really cool thing I did that you guys would have discovered in maybe 2069 on the 100th anniversary, like after I'm long gone. Like that's, well, I mean, I would have been 98 by then. Um, so I'll say that this is probably, I wasn't ready for the rapid fire instant gratitude. Um, like besides maybe my fourth album with the Roots, Things Fall Apart, I can't recall a project that instantly um, put me almost in like, he's a jolly good fella kind of
Mm-hmm.
status.
Yeah.
So thus, I think just as a protective device, I really didn't allow myself to, weird enough, ironic enough, I didn't allow myself to feel the joy,
Mm-hmm.
feel the
Mm-hmm.
joy and the happiness that the movie gives off. Like I never allowed it. Everything I did was always like, oh yeah, yeah, I did that. And, oh yeah, you discovered that's cool. Like I think I did it as a protective device. So uh, maybe I felt that was the best way to deal with the disappointment, just the general disappointment. So when the movie comes out and people are really going over the top, like here's the weird thing. I mean, you yourself, I mean, you yourself wrote probably uh one of the, and I'm a periodical junkie,
Mm-hmm.
before
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a household where there was always critical like like Greg Tate's writings used to adorn my bedroom walls. Like, I love.
R.I.P. Greg Tate. Yes.
Yes. So the thing is that like, I'm not only my guy that's obsessed with creatives, but I'm also obsessed when people praise creatives, you know, and, I mean, you yourself, like I didn't even allow myself to read your review of it in the Times until maybe 6 months later. Like I knew you wrote it,
Mm-hmm.
but just the way that I have programmed myself, Like the first thing I did was I went to the 2 reviews that did not like the movie. You know,
Yeah.
there's 500 glowing reviews of it, but yet I'm in Rotten Tomatoes looking for the 2, like just the 2. So I mean, just in general, I learned quick, fast to change all of that and to learn how to accept love and accept praise. So this has been kind of a long overdue thing where I'm actually enjoying and appreciating the love and just the silly things that have occurred. Like, you know, the time where Obama calls and I actually thought it was my Postmates guy that was stuck in the elevator. Like that kind of thing. Wait, you think I'm Postmates? It's Barry. I'm like, who? And, you know, I didn't read none of the text of my team of like, he's calling you right now. Like I was waiting for my food to come. This has just been, literally every day has been Christmas.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And as a guy world famous for sort of matrix bullet dodging, that feeling, this is like the happiest moments of my life.
Well,
and I realized that answer was like 9 minutes long. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, well, if you're talking about the happiest moment of your life, I mean, come on, 9 minutes it's not even adequate. But yeah. I think one of the things that people are so, I mean, I'm gonna read the culture for a second. And I think one of the things that people are grateful to you for is, well, I mean, for one thing, I mean, the movie just works, right? You made a film. It could have been good with just a bunch of footage that was edited to explain who was there. You pick a couple good moments from each performance.
That's what it started as. It started as that.
Right.
Right.
And so, but you didn't do that. You made something that actually is its own work of music that also in its mere existence, but also in the way that it exists, is making an argument for canon expansion, which is a thing I'm really interested in, right? Like, this is a movie that is arguing for, you know, this whole spectrum of people having had major national significance in a way that, you know, for some people you kind of take as granted, like Stevie Wonder or, you know, Mahalia Jackson.
Or the Fifth Dimension.
But the Fifth Dimension is exactly what I'm thinking about. Exactly.
Perfect example. No one really truly had on their bingo card that they would become Fifth Dimension advocates all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And how long overdue they are for, you know, their journey. So yeah, I'll tell you at the very, I'll say maybe in the last 3 months, for me, I think it hit me that time is the star of the film. Mm-hmm. Time and numbers are the star of the film because, you know, one, it's about 1969, which was definitely a paradigm shift for our journey as Black people and where we were. But then also, from a creative aspect, all these acts are literally at the cliff, about to jump into a new river of the 70s, of which all of them will become household names: Staples, mm-hmm. Stevie, mm-hmm. Sly. But also the story of the 50 years stalling, the Black erasure, the benign racism, whatever, the 50 years out the gate, that played a component. But also, for me, I'll say that in 2017, 2018, where I was in my life, and at that, you know, when I first got it, it was just like, all right, let me just make a really cool mixtape, find the right 17 songs, put them in order, slap it, and then the world will discover this in 2069.
Right.
And then what starts happening is, I'm too curious about what I'm watching. Even to this day, when I watch movies, like even now, I'm watching Ozark. I don't watch anything now, especially in streaming culture, without the audio description on and without subtitles on. And if there's director's commentary, chances are I might watch that first before I actually watch it without context. It's just, I don't know. This is how I've been programmed. Like I got to see what the engine is as we're going to the destination. So
that's really interesting, Ahmir. That's
well, that comes from, I've lived in a tour bus for 20 some odd years. I mean, between 93 and 2008, I lived in a tour bus. And then, and we're doing these long ass runs. We're doing like 17 hours from Chicago to Denver. So, I'm not going to watch The Godfather all over again, out of boredom.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it a different way. And once I discovered director's commentary, then I started watching, like, for me, it's just like, I got to see the engine and how things work. And so for me, the door opening started with, once we found out that there was disdain about the moon landing, which, as a 70s kid, as an 80s kid, where you're taught in school that this was important, Neil Armstrong, and this is Tang, and this is the Apollo, you're
right.
learning all these things. I didn't realize or know, with the exception of a notable like lyric from Curtis Mayfield, Rockets and Dreams and all that stuff, and Whitey on the Moon by Gil Scott. I truly didn't know that was a major issue. And once we discovered what was under the hood, then it was like, what else can we discover? And more, like, so everything that you're discovering and finding out is basically, we had this film with no context. Hal Tolshin, when he releases the film to us, he dies 48 hours later. Like, this was like his last act. He signed it over. He died between the next day and 2 days after. And we had no context. Even when I put feelers out on Twitter, like, hey, do you have a grandmom that swears to God that she saw Sly and Stevie one time back in the 60s, like with allegedly like 80,000 people in Mount Morris Park? Like, I didn't believe it. When they pitched me, I would excuse myself to the next room, call up Nelson George, like, yo, man, you heard some Blackwood stuff? I called everyone, all the people that I felt that were least alive in 69, Spike, Nelson George, like all the New York, the New York representatives, and none of them knew about it. Chris Rock, you know about this thing? Never heard of it. I Googled it. There was nothing there, which is the scariest thing about Black erasure. Yep. It wasn't on Google, so I guess it didn't happen. So I came in the door very skeptical about this thing even happening. And once the moment that Hal Tolshin's widow gives us, she's moving and going to Florida, and hey, there's some stuff in the basement. I don't know if you guys want this or not, but before this gets trashed, and we're like, you think? And it's like the blueprints, it's the contracts, it's the memo of Aretha Franklin not being able to make it the last, a week before. It's a 17-year-old Luther Vandross being shuffled to the last week because we'll put the Miss Harlem pageant and the nobodies, the no-name people in the last week that we can't shoot because our film company is doing this pilot of a show called Sesame Street. It's finding out Jimi Hendrix wanted to perform with Sly the same day as Sly and the Family Stone, and there's a rejection letter. So literally the story.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you pause?
Oh, what? Yeah, that too. Yeah, dude. In Hal Tolshin's notes, this is where I find everything I want to know. Like, Mahalia Jackson got paid $10,000 and Sly and the Family Stone got $2,500. This is where the memo of the production company letting Tolson and them know that, you know, we're shooting a pilot called Sesame Street, and so we can't do the last week. So now there's correspondence of scrambling of getting all the main acts on the first 5 weeks and the whatever is on the, you know, the last week. And Luther Vandross and really his army of legends, from Fonzie Thornton to anyone that was in 20 Feet from Stardom, like all the greats that Luther's used, they're in a group called Listen My Brother, you know, which, weird enough, Listen My Brother winds up being on the pilot episode of Sesame Street singing about the number 20. So Google Luther Vandross Sesame Street and it shows you the pilot episode. But things like that. But with Jimi Hendrix, not many people know that Jimi Hendrix was also at a crossroads the last year of his life, where he, similar to how Betty Marbury had convinced Miles Davis to lose them Italian suits and to get with what the kids are doing now. Jimi Hendrix had that moment too, where he's now disbanding the Experience. He's tired of being the primitive, exotic, black, wild novelty guy that destroys his guitars and, you know, does all this crazy things. And he too wants to get more grounded in his black roots. So he desperately wanted to play the Harlem Cultural Festival. I don't know if it was because of time or what he represented. Maybe that was a little too radical. But the thing is that everything played at the Harlem Cultural Festival.
I was going to say, everybody was there. Who's saying no to Jimi Hendrix?
Well, the compromise was Hendrix winds up going, he does 3 weeks of after parties. So for three of those weeks, for 3 of those weeks, Hendrix and guitar great Freddie King are doing their only duo shows together, and Hendrix's only Harlem appearances at 3 nightclubs. He winds up doing that. So it's like little tidbits like that. Like it's Aretha Franklin that was supposed to do Precious Lord with Mahalia Jackson, and instead Mavis steps in. Yeah, so it's just once that starts pouring in, then it's like, all right, we got to have context. And then the icing on the cake for me is that once March 16th, 2020 happens, which I consider that the day the world shut down. That was the Monday the entire world, hey, we're not safe out here.
Yeah.
We had to wash this project completely away. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I try to use that as an excuse for, okay, I wasn't meant to do this film, so nice knowing you guys. See you. And they're like, no, Joseph Patel, my producer's like, no, we're learning what the Zoom thing is, and we're going to finish this film. And what winds up happening is suddenly in March, it was about the pandemic, but then come April and May, with George Floyd, with Breonna Taylor, like with everything that's happening, suddenly art is imitating life. And I'm realizing that, oh, wow, the same exact circumstances of 50 years ago is happening 50 years later. And that pretty much is what inspired the film as you have it now, because you're watching the work of someone that grew up on Public Enemy, so now like we're thinking, me, Josh, and Joseph and Zara are now like, we're thinking like the Bomb Squad, I'm Hank Stockley, Josh Pearson's Eric Sadler, Joseph's Keith Shockley, Zara's either Chuck D or, like it's the 4 of us, like that's what it became. And weird enough, with Greg Tate in the film, the release of the It Takes a Nation of Millions album by Public Enemy, their second album, was such a paradigm shift for this 17-year-old listening to it and realizing this is what he wants to do. And once I read Greg Tate's review of that album in the Village Voice, I was like, not only is this what I want to do, but I also want to be the guy that knows how to describe music and paint a picture for people on how beautiful music could be.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
this is all coming full circle. I'm sorry for these long
No,
ass.
these are not digressive answers, Amir. These are answers. Don't worry.
Sorry, I just passionate. This is what you get for getting me right after meditating this morning. I'm sorry. Sorry.
We're all the beneficiaries. Keep going.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean that to me is what the film wound up being. Like, time is the reason why. Because had this come out in 2019, it probably wouldn't have been this. I think my initial goal was like to start in Harlem, expand to Spanish Harlem, and then I think my ideal ending was like, okay, so we lost Harry Belafonte's interview, of which Harry was a really important component for Hugh Masekela's life. Bringing him, it's Harry Belafonte that helps him move, helps him escape South Africa in the 60s to study music in the UK. And then he brings him to New York. Without Harry Belafonte, there is no Hugh Masekela.
No,
so
exactly, yes.
I wanted, I think we were going to frame it as, Harlem was anywhere Black USA, sort of the leader of fashion, the leader of what the future was, and then expand to let you know that Harlem just wasn't the Apollo Theater and Miss Sylvia's restaurant, that there were other residents, a world, like a worldview, and then end kind of with Harry Belafonte and Hugh Masekela's story. But once we got to March 2020, then it was a whole nother story, and I'm not mad at it at all.
No, I mean, it worked out. I also think that I also suspect that you knew all that you had, and you kind of wanted to do right by the footage too, right?
No doubt. Yeah, because okay, so for me, I think Prince's autobiography came out 2018, I think. So I'm reading this, and there's a moment where Prince was world famous for just the ambiguity of his childhood. You didn't know if he was adopted or if he was Black or white, like all those things that he sings about in Controversy. Like that was not only his shield, but also his premise. And in the first, he only wrote 4 chapters for the autobiography, and for him, he really wanted to dispel the myth of what we thought his childhood was. And he says, like, he painted a really fuzzy, beautiful moment with him and his dad going to see Woodstock when he was 11, and he's watching Santana, and he's looking at the screen like, that's my future. Like, this is what I'm going to do. What he's doing right now, that's what I want to do for my life. And I thought about it like, yo, man, so you're trying to tell me that the Santana moment is what built Prince, which by the transitive axiom built me. Now, I mean, so even Woodstock affects my life, because someone who watched Woodstock, like I'm being affected by the person who watched Woodstock. Like, that's how powerful Woodstock was. Right. And I just thought about it, man. I'm like, damn, like, okay, so I got here because, well, one, of creative epigenetics. My mom and my dad are singers. So I got here, and then Prince sort of got me here. And I just kept wondering about, like, wow, man, like, even if you don't use my creative license of editing and all those things, like, what would have happened if I'm 6 years old watching this? How would this have the same effect on me as my mom taking me to see The Wiz as an 8-year-old? I think seeing The Wiz was like the first Black production as a movie that I saw. But by then, Michael Jackson was our hero and all that stuff. So it was exciting. But I just kept wondering, like, man, we were robbed of that moment. And who's to say that I've also discovered that Woodstock the movie, as with most things that have revisionist history, Woodstock the movie was way more legendary than the actual Woodstock. Because if even two of the things that happened at Woodstock happened at the Harlem Cultural Festival, then the world would have known about the Harlem Cultural Festival.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We like crashing the gates, sex on the grass, drugs on the grass, like all those things. Like, oh man, they all did heroin on the, like, you would have known about it. But it just goes to show you without, and I didn't want to even parade that, like, see, we are civilized. Like, not one thing happened. Like the temptation to do that was there, but I didn't want to paint it as like, again,
well-behaved Black people enjoy music and not, exactly. Yes.
I did not want to do that. So all Woodstock comparisons were out of there, including the title. Call Them Film Summer Soul was like the last, not even 11th hour. It was literally like 11th hour and 59 minutes and 59 seconds. And
you were going to call it Black Woodstock.
We were, well, it was always called Black Woodstock, because even on the reels, Tolson just, for him, it was just like, I got to sell this hook or crook. It was like him as Uncut Gems. Like, I got to sell these, I got to do what I got to do. Yes, it's like Black Woodstock. And it's so weird. Two things happened right on the last week of, Speak Now, Forever Hold Your Peace. And, it's very unusual to create a film. It's very unusual to create a film without doing a bunch of focus groups. Like, we only did maybe two. We did two on Zoom. So it's not even in a movie theater. It's not like you're watching it, with the way we intended it. I did a majority of my viewing on my iPhone. So it's very unusual circumstances. And I remember waking up in the morning and I asked my girlfriend, I was like, look, I need you to be like rigorously honest with me. Like, what do you really think? Because the thing is that I'm also used to, from a hip hop standpoint, when you play, like the day we finished Voodoo, D'Angelo's Voodoo. Yep. And I remember, speaking of Prince actually kicked me out of my own session once to play Rave to the Joy Fantastic to Clive Davis in my room. So I was working with De La Soul, and so Pasta News had an hour or two to spare while we're waiting for Prince to get out of my session, out of my room. And Russ Elevado just played him, just mastered Voodoo, and I'm playing it for him. And the room, like, they started to cry. They're like, this is the most beautiful thing we ever heard. So, like, I'm used to like that sort of like, yo, man, like, I'm gonna kill people with this, and their over the top reactions. And with this film, it was sort of like, oh man, it's good, it's nice. So I just thought, like, well, maybe the movie world's different, and it's not like hip hop where everyone's all impassioned with their responses. So I just asked her, I said, look, like, you're rigorously honest. What do you really think? She's like, look, it's a good, solid film. I said, well, give me your however. I know the however's coming. She's like, yes, however. She's like, you might as well throw the film in the trash if you guys send this out in the world as Black Woodstock. Like, this deserves its own light. This deserves its own, don't put in context to that. And then she also said, at the time when it was like crunch time, this is when protests and outrage was at an all-time high. Like, cities were burning all summer 2020. She's just like, I don't know, like, not for nothing, but I think you need to end. Like, I explained to her, whenever I do a project, I work backwards. I always start with my ending first and then work backwards. And she's like, she knows, to me, how in anything that I do, I believe that the first 10 minutes are important and the last 15 minutes are important. That's how I put shows together. Many a Roots show has sucked, but them last 15 minutes, it's like
I've been great. Yes.
It's our Men in Black flashy thing. You go away thinking, God damn, that show is dope. And then they forget about whatever happened in the middle.
That has never been my experience at a root show, by the way. I just want to say for the record, there's no flab in the middle.
That means that we Men in Black flashy you. No, I'm playing.
All right. Yeah, it must have worked. Must have worked.
Right. So my whole thing was, she's like, I don't know, but if you really want to reflect where we are in America right now, she's like the Precious Lord ending. So here's the deal. Mavis and Mahalia, where it falls into the film, it's a 2-hour film. So I think Mavis and Mahalia's Precious Lord comes in maybe the 45-minute mark. And Nina Simone ends the film.
Yes.
Initially, Nina Simone was in the beginning. Nina Simone was in the middle. And I had Precious Lord as my breathless race to the finish. And she's like, it feels very like kumbaya. Can't we just all get along? It feels like a Hollywood ending. But if you are concerned, and I know you, if you're trying to figure out where we are right now as Black people in the summer of 2020, not knowing if we're going to live or die, she's like, I think you might want to reconsider where Nina Simone lies and put her towards the end, because that's the feeling that people are going to walk away with. Like, that's going to make people stand at attention as they're watching it. And once I went back to Joseph and Zara and my people at Radical, they all agreed. They're like, yeah, Nina's more speaking of now. Like, if this were before the pandemic, before the protests, before Black Lives Matter, we would have probably said that the breathless race to the finish is the summit meeting between Mahalia and Mavis. But as soon as that happened, then suddenly this became that moment of like playing voodoo for people, which is weird because it's literally, it goes to show you how editing and pacing can change people's opinion. Like, if you listen to Thriller in reverse and it started off with Lady of My Life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that
track 4, want to be starting something, doesn't work. It's not the same thing.
Exactly. So thus it's also about your editing and your pacing, your feng shui with it. And so yeah, that to me was important.
Okay. We are out of time.
Damn. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just too excited to talk about it.
No, it's okay. But here's the thing. You made like perhaps the best movie of 2021. I'm
receiving that. You see how uncomfortable I was with receiving that. Thank you.
Just receive it. Just receive it. Just
Thank
receive
you.
it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You made, I mean, we didn't even talk about the editing, but the editing is a feat in itself.
Josh Pearson, all props to him. I told Radical and I told Joseph, like, we need an editor that has a rhythmic sense, a musician. If there's an editor that's a musician out there, and they're like, well, you're in luck because Josh Pearson is a hip hop head and a musician. And when we said the Bomb Squad, he was just like, say no more. The Bomb Squad, of course, being the production unit of Public Enemy.
Made Public Enemy, yes.
Once I said, for the stuff that he's done, it really didn't allow that sort of chaos. So for him, this was fun because this is the type of editing that he wanted to always do. Yeah.
Well, with that said, congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck. And I don't know, enjoy, just enjoy 2022. Just receive it. I know you're busy. I know you work a lot. I know there's a lot of stuff going on.
Not even. Every day is a gift. I've slowed down. No more 19 jobs. I'm down to a very normal 9 jobs. Trust me cutting 20 jobs down to under 10 is like, that's a miracle. So no, my time is slowed down. I'm enjoying life and I'm enjoying love and enjoy what I brought, what I presented to the world. I'm now receiving it. And that's all you can ask for. That is all you can ask for. So, well, congratulations. Thank you. And I really, And I really want to thank you for that write-up. That really touched me. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, listen, if you don't do your job, I can't do mine. So
you get me. Thank you. All right. Thank you a lot. All right.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you. See you later.